3 spine-chilling true tales of sinister summer horror revealed, hidden nightmares exposed. The summer sun hung low over the tight-knit town of Maplewood, throwing strange shadows that seemed to twist and curl in the heat. As Sarah pulled into the driveway after another exhausting shift at the grocery store, dread seeped through her bones. She was a single mother, and every day felt like a battle just to keep her 2 kids safe and fed. But something darker was at play in Maplewood, something sinister. In hushed whispers, the townsfolk spoke of 3 children gone missing, vanished like vapor, leaving only eerie silence and cold fear in their wake. The unsettling rumors would flare up unexpectedly at the grocery store, where mothers exchanged fidgety looks. Sarah had heard snippets of gossip, the same names repeated, accusations hanging heavy in the air like summer humidity. Mr. Lawson, the well-liked school teacher who often helped Sarah with babysitting, had become an accidental villain in their conversations. Yet despite the dark suspicions swirling around, Mr. Lawson had always been kind to her, always offering support just when she needed it. But that wasn't enough to silence the growing unease within her. "Mom! Guess what?" Max burst through the door, a wide grin stretching across his freckled face. "Mr. Lawson taught me and Lily a new game." His excitement cut through her, momentarily blinding her to the dread creeping up her spine. "What kind of game?" Sarah's curiosity was laced with a tinge of anxiety. "Hide and seek." Max beamed. "But it's called Lost Ones. It's about finding treasures from the kids who went missing." A chill coursed through her veins. It was not just a game, but barely hidden echoes of tragedy whispering between the laughs of her children. How could they play this? Something in Sarah twisted painfully, tightening around her heart. She confronted her children, only to find their idolization of Mr. Lawson had morphed into obsession. "Mom, he said that if you can't see them anymore, you might lose us too," they told her, their innocent eyes sparkling with the belief that everything he said was good and true. The darkness deepened. Each night, Sarah lingered at her window, peering into the unfurling shadows. She watched, heart racing, each rustling leaf echoing her fears. What was Mr. Lawson really doing when he said he was helping? Were those children really just lost? Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Late one night, during a storm that tossed branches like candy wrappers, she spotted Mr. Lawson outside, a twisted silhouette against the glow of the moon. Darkness clung to him as he chuckled, leaving her stomach hollow. Her pulse echoed in her ears as she strained to piece together the bizarre secrets of Maplewood, of Lost Ones, where shadows danced and innocence was as fragile as winter frost. Each breath felt like ice water flooding her lungs as she pressed her face to the window, praying he couldn't see her. What had always been a trusted neighbor now looked like something out of a nightmare, a wolf in sheep's clothing. As the night swelled with unspeakable terror, Sarah clung to the fleeting hope that the truth would surface before it was too late. Would she uncover a darkness buried beneath Maplewood's friendly facade? Would her children remain safe, or had they already been ensnared in something far more dangerous? The flickering lights in the neighborhood illuminated a chilling question: who would save her children from horror lurking right next door? The next morning, the tension hung in the air like an approaching storm. Sarah's eyes fluttered open, but sleep offered no solace. Her nightmares latched tightly to her waking thoughts. Max and Lily stirred beside her, blissfully unaware of the looming shadow outside. While dread tightened around her like a noose, she could hear the distant echo of laughter ringing from the backyard, yet her heart felt leaden. It was just the kids playing their game, or so she hoped. Coming down the stairs, she tried to suppress the nagging anxiety that clawed at her gut. The game was innocent, wasn't it? As Sarah poured her morning coffee, she gazed out the window. Mr. Lawson's home was just across the street, still shrouded in twilight shadows. She hadn't seen him since that dreadful night. Her hands trembled slightly, but she forced herself to sip the hot liquid, trying to ground herself in some semblance of normality. Moments later, she heard a soft knock at the door. It was Mrs. Thompson from next door, her brow furrowed with worry. "Sarah, have you heard the news?" she said, her voice trembling. "What news?" Sarah felt her heart race. "Another child went missing last night. They found his bike abandoned by the park." Mrs. Thompson's eyes were wide with terror, each word slicing deeper than a knife. "That makes 4 now." Panic surged within Sarah. 4 children. Each disappearance tugging at her mind, linking her to the growing mystery. "Oh my God, but how?" "They think it's connected somehow to Mr. Lawson," Mrs. Thompson whispered, glancing around to ensure no one else was listening. "I saw him with the kids last week. He always had that strange smile on his face." Sarah fought back tears. Was it all too late already? Max and Lily were still outside, running in pure joy, blissfully unaware of the horror surrounding them. "I have to." Before she could finish her thought, a loud crash echoed from the backyard. It sent ice-cold adrenaline coursing through her veins. "Max! Lily!" She dashed toward the back door, fear propelling her forward. The children stood frozen, pointing at the ground. Sarah's heart raced as she arrived, expecting to find a stray branch or something mundane. What she found made her stomach churn. An old, cracked doll lay amongst the toys, its eyes staring blankly at Sarah. It was the same doll that had gone missing during a particularly fierce storm a year ago, one her children had adored. "Where did you find this?" she gasped, kneeling to examine the doll, its matted hair and worn dress clinging to memories. "We just found it there, Mom," Max said, his voice trembling. "It was, waiting for us." Lily moved closer to her brother, their small hands clasped tightly together. The innocence in their eyes conflicted with the dark weight settling in Sarah's chest. "Waiting?" she echoed, dread pooling in her gut. They were taking this too lightly. "Mr. Lawson said some toys belong to the lost ones," Max said. "And if we don't play, they'll stay lost forever." Her world trembled beneath her as an overwhelming desire to scream rose from her throat. This was no longer a game. Suddenly, a chilling breeze swirled around them, snatching at her hair and sending the doll tumbling across the grass. A sinister laughter cut through the world, a brief sound that echoed far too close, wrapping around Sarah's mind like chains. "No. No. Come back." She leaped forward, chasing after the doll, but it seemed to have a will of its own, rolling until it came to rest at the edge of Lawson's garden. Heart pounding, Sarah looked up. Mr. Lawson was standing there, his figure large and imposing, a slight smirk on his lips. "Don't worry, Sarah. They're just playing, like they're supposed to." With horror washing over her, she realized she was too far from her children, too far from safety. "Mom!" came a small voice. It was Max, reaching out, unaware of the predator lurking near. Shadows lengthened around them, and Sarah felt the walls of their world closing in. Darkness enveloped her, and a bone-chilling realization crept in: someone had to break the cycle. With her heart racing, Sarah had a decision to make. Should she confront Mr. Lawson now, or would that decision seal their fates for good? The answer lingered on the edge of her thoughts, waiting to unravel. As she took a step forward, ready to fight for her children, the laughter rang out again, haunting and cold. What awaited her on the other side of confrontation? Sarah's breath caught in her throat as she took a step toward Mr. Lawson. His smirk deepened, eyes glinting with something sinister. Every fiber of her being screamed at her to turn away, to grab her children and run. "Stay away from them!" Sarah shouted, her voice trembling with fear. But deep down, she knew that without confronting the monster standing before her, they would never be safe. The laughter faded into silence, wrapping the neighborhood in an unsettling stillness. Mr. Lawson tilted his head, his smile fading into an unreadable mask. "You really don't understand, do you? His voice was deceptively calm, a soft drawl that set her on edge. The game must be played. It's the only way. Game? What game? Sarah felt her heart race, the words slipping from her lips like a desperate whisper. The lost ones, he said, his gaze flickering to Max and Lily. They're waiting for someone to free them to remember them. Children know how to play, but adults forget. The words curled around Sarah like smoke, suffocating and thick. You're sick. You think, but before she could finish, there was a nagging presence behind her, followed by an eerie silence. She spun around. Max and Lily had moved closer to Lawson, their faces transfixed by some unseen allure. The chill in her bones multiplied as she caught their eyes a vacant glaze, as if they were being drawn in by a force she couldn't see. Children, Lawson said, his voice low and syrupy sweet. Always so eager to learn, her instincts kicked in, and Sarah lunged forward, grabbing Lily's arm. No. Come here. The pull of Lawson's gaze diverted Lily for just a second, but it was enough. Max hesitated, confused, and she dragged them back with all her strength. Stay close to me. She could feel her heart hammering against her ribs, now fierce with urgency. But the laughter returned, high-pitched and mocking, echoing from all around. The shadows that danced across the lawn felt alive, swaying and shifting as if in response to their growing fear. Lawson stepped forward, a predator closing in. You can't keep them from their destiny, Sarah. It's already begun. What does that mean? The words felt heavy and hopeless. Suddenly, the wind howled, shrieking like a banshee. It knocked her off balance, and she tumbled to the ground. The world shifted, colors clashing as the laughter grew into a chaotic symphony. The yard became a mosaic of shadows, swirling and blurring around her. Mom! Max screamed, reaching for her, but she could barely make out his outline through the fog closing in. Sarah felt terror gripping her heart as she scrambled up, the ground slippery beneath her. She fought to push through the thickening darkness, a shroud that felt almost alive, snatching at her limbs. Come on, kids! She screamed, desperation taking control. We have to get home. But the spell twisted tighter as shadows flickered, morphing into forms that lunged at her children who'd gone missing. Their faces, twisted in anguish, echoed their pain. Help us! They cried, their voices layered over one another. Play with us. No. Stay back. With a surge of adrenaline, Sarah pulled her children closer and shoved her way through the gathering storm of spirits. Everything in her screamed to run, but where? The walls of their suburban home now felt like barriers trapping them in an illusion of safety. Outside, the laughter crescendoed. It seeped into her bones, a melody of despair and lost innocence. As she turned to flee, she spotted Mr. Lawson beckoning them, the shadows whirling around him in a macabre dance. Suddenly, a piercing scream shattered the air, and her heart sank. It was Lily, her little voice lost amid the chaos. The shadows surged toward her, their grasp reaching out like clawed hands. Lily. Sarah reached out, but the darkness closed in, swallowing her children whole. The last glimpse she had of Lily was her terrified eyes as she vanished into the haze, leaving Sarah gasping in horror. Find the lost ones, Sarah. Only then will they be free, Lawson called, his grin widening as the laughter enveloped her, dragging her deeper. Into the nightmare unfolding around them, trapped, Sarah fought against the darkness surrounding her and her children. But what price would she pay to free the lost ones? Could she navigate the chaos in time? Or would she lose them forever? As shadows danced, Sarah realized, the real game had only just begun. The darkness wrapped around Sarah like a suffocating blanket, each heartbeat echoing in her ears, drowning out the laughter that danced on the wind. Panic surged through her as the laughter faded, replaced by the agonizing cries of the lost ones, those unfortunate children who paid the price for a game no one remembered playing. Lily! She shouted again, her voice cracking, desperation clawing at her throat. But there was no response. Sarah felt the weight of the shadows pressing down on her. They slithered menacingly, whispering secrets only little children could hear and luring them to join their desperate ranks. Max! Stay close. She turned to her son, his face pale and expressive, eyes wide with confusion and fear. He trembled at her side, clinging to her arm as shadowy figures flickered just beyond their vision, peering out with gaunt faces that twisted into grotesque smiles. "Mom, what's happening?" Max breathed, his tiny voice full of dread. "We have to find Lily." Sarah snapped, urgency igniting her muscles. She dashed forward, dragging Max behind her. Each step felt heavier, as if the ground itself was fighting against her. With every blink, the shadows morphed, becoming jarring images of children past, their laughter turned into wails, their joy into pain, pressing against her mind like a war drum. Suddenly, a figure stepped out of the shadows, a small girl with hair like tangled weeds and eyes that seemed to absorb the light. "Help us please," she beckoned, her voice a haunting whisper amidst the chaos. "Who are you? Where's my daughter?" Sarah felt the anger rising in her chest, struggling to stay focused. The girl's face contorted, flashing briefly between innocence and despair. "You must remember before it's too late." "Remember what?" But the girl just stared, her gaze turning glassy. Behind her, the awful sound of rustling intensified, and other shadowy figures began to converge on them, closing the ranks. "Don't let them take you!" The girl shouted, urgency sparking in her voice. Without warning, she darted back into the black, disappearing amidst an explosion of sinister laughter. Fear paralyzed Sarah for a moment, feeling trapped among the whirling shades. She grabbed Max's hand tighter, their fingers woven together, drawing strength from one another. "We can't stay here," she said, determined to push onward. They turned away from the well of torment and stumbled toward a flickering lamppost in the distance. The dim light cut through the oppressive darkness, offering a beacon of hope. But as they drew closer, Sarah's heart sank. The shadows were gathering around it, pulsing and throbbing like a living entity, and she could feel the horrific weight of what it might bring. "Mom, I'm scared." Max's voice trembled, clutching her hand tighter. "It's okay," she whispered, forcing calm into her voice. "We'll find Lily, we'll find a way out. I promise." But even as she spoke, waves of dread crashed over her, pulling her deeper into uncertainty. The shadows began to shift, creeping forward like a tide intent on devouring everything in its path. "Remember, Sarah, this is only the beginning." Suddenly, a piercing wail erupted from behind them, Lily's voice. It was drowned in the laughter of the lost ones. The shifting shadows split like a curtain, revealing a darker void, a gaping maw pulling at her children. "Max, run!" But before she could even make a move, a shadow lunged, clawing at her side. A scream choked in her throat as all at once, everything became a cacophony of sound, the laughter, the wails, the voices of the lost ones melding into one terrifying command, demanding her to remember. Now there was only footfalls echoing against her terror-filled heartbeat. And then she saw it, a glimmer in the distance through the shadows, a movement among the chaos. What could it be? Was it another child or the doorway to save her own? "Look!" she cried, her heart torn between hope and dread. But as she took a step forward, the darkness seemed to recoil, swirling violently, leaving nothing but silence behind. Could that flicker lead her to Lily? Or would it consume them all? The game was far from over, but the stakes were growing higher, and the darkness was waiting. The air was thick, stifling, and heavy with a palpable tension that seemed to suffocate Sarah as she approached the flickering light. Shadows danced around them, shifting in erratic motions, trying to reach out and ensnare them. She could feel the chilling pull, as if every phantom hand in the darkness was straining toward her and Max, the wails of the lost ones growing more frantic, desperate for her attention. "Mom, we shouldn't go near it," Max whispered, fear lacing his voice. "No. We have to. I feel it, Max. That light, it's something, it might be the key." She pressed on, heart pounding like a war drum. With every step they took, the shadows seemed to slither back, as if the light was repelling them, but their mocking laughter intensified, filling her ears with agonizing echoes. As they neared, the flicker transformed into a full glow, bathing the area in a ghostly light. Sarah's heart jumped in her chest. There in the illuminated circle stood an old wooden door, warped and peeling, covered in a suffocating darkness that snaked around the edges like a coiling serpent. Above it hung a rusty sign that swayed eerily, words barely decipherable but carved deep into the wood, "Exit." Do you think it's safe?" Max stammered, still tugging at her arm, eyes darting nervously. Sarah hesitated. Beneath her instincts warned that nothing was truly safe. "I don't know, sweetheart, but we have no other choice. We need to get to Lily." Before she could lose her courage, she pushed the door open. It creaked ominously, a horrible echo reverberating through the night. Max flinched but stayed beside her, the child's grip still firmly in her hand. Beyond the threshold lay an empty corridor, its walls draped in thick, ragged shadows that pulsed like a heartbeat, a pathway fraught with the unseen. With every step into the corridor, things shifted. The shadows squirmed. Whispers, once a distant hum, flared into distinct clamor. Conflicting voices echoed around her, interwoven with phrases she couldn't quite grasp. "Remember the game, find the way home, Lily is waiting, Mom." What are they saying? Max's tiny voice cracked with fear, pulling Sarah back to the moment. "I don't know, but we have to keep moving," she urged, their steps quickening. The walls of the corridor closed in, contracting around them as if the shadows aimed to swallow them whole. Suddenly, a figure stepped out from the wall of shadows, a gaunt child, hollowed eyes glinting with an unnatural light. She reached out, her hands stretching, fingers clawing for them. "Help us, we can't leave. You have to help us. Max. Run!" Sarah shouted, tugging him away, but the child's voice latched onto her mind, pulling her into a whirlpool of torment. The laughter of the lost ones flooded in, drowning everything. Another shadow flickered past her, forming into the small silhouette of a girl, Lily. Her hair danced around her face like smoke, eyes lost and pleading. "Mom!" Her voice was a mere whisper but held an urgency that sliced through Sarah's fear like a blade. "Lily!" Sarah cried out, instinctively moving toward her daughter. But as she reached for her, the corridor twisted, shadows clawing at her legs, holding her back, trapping her in a nightmare. "No! I won't let you take her." With a surge of adrenaline, Sarah fought against the pull, straining to break free. The shadows hissed, lashing out, striking like vipers, wrapping around her torso, pulling her deeper into the darkness. "Mom! Please!" Max screamed, tears streaming down his innocent face. "Stay back!" Sarah screamed, fear giving way to primal rage. She couldn't lose Lily. She wouldn't let despair consume them. In that moment, everything froze, the shadows tensed, holding their breath, the corridor still and trembling. Time shifted awkwardly, and in the icy grip of terror, Sarah's mind raced back to the girl with tangled hair. Remember. But what was it she needed to remember? In the depths of that darkness, a horrifying realization ignited something from the past, a game that wasn't forgotten. Was she the one who played it? The shadows tightened their grip, laughter echoed, and in that thundering chaos, Sarah's thoughts began unspooling like a dark ribbon, a memory clawing its way back, revealing the twisted truth hidden within. What had she done? And as the darkness seemed to pulse with anticipation, she felt a cold rush of dread that this revelation could mean everything was at stake. Would she be able to save Lily, or would they all become lost ones forever? A heartbeat. Then another. Silence slipped back in, leaving nothing but the chilling laughter that resonated deep within the shadows. As the corridor twisted and shifted, Sarah grasped her son's hand tighter, bracing for the storm of horror that was about to unfold. Would she survive the next wave? Or would the darkness finally consume them all, leaving just another story whispered among the shadows? The game was changing, and time was running out. The air crackled as the corridor tightened around them, shadows flickering like restless spirits eager to escape their confines. Sarah's heart was a drum in her chest, the rhythm speeding as realization tore through her. This was not just a passage, it was a trap. A terrible puzzle meant to break her. "Mom!" Max's panic-stricken voice cut through the shadows, pulling her back to the immediate horror. He was trembling, his small frame almost swallowed by the darkness. "Hold on to me, Max. Don't let go." She forced her voice to sound steady, though it trembled with the weight of fear. The shadows hissed, their laughter growing louder, a cacophony of distorted voices swirling around her like smoke. Sarah could make out fragments of their mocking words, echoes of her own despair. "You'll lose them too, just like before." The memory clawed at her mind, resurfacing like a nightmare not fully forgotten. What had she done? The truth lingered just out of reach, taunting her. She grasped at it, aware that every second spent lost in thought brought Lily and Max closer to being consumed by the lost ones. "Mom, the door." Max pointed, his small finger trembling. The door they had just entered from now stood ominously at the end of the corridor, distorted, flickering in and out of existence like a fading star. "Stay close," Sarah shouted, bolting toward the door, dragging Max behind her. The shadows lunged, lashing out like whips, each strike pulling her back, trying to ground her to this nightmarish realm. The air was thick with despair, each breath a struggle against the encroaching darkness. As they neared the door, Sarah could feel the shadows clawing at her resolve. "You left us once before, you will leave again," they hissed, their voices mingling like serpents. "Shut up. I'm not leaving," she screamed back, desperation igniting her strength. Just feet away from the door, a glimmer of hope broke through. The faint outline of her daughter's silhouette emerged from the enveloping dark. "Mom! I'm here. Please." Lily's voice, soft yet filled with an urgency that twisted into agony, grabbed at Sarah's heart. "Lily!" Sarah cried out, trying to break free from the grasping shadows. But they tightened around her, coiling and wrapping around her limbs, anchoring her in a cold embrace. Max was still pulling at her hand, his strength dwindling with fear. "Mom, don't let go of me," he sobbed, his voice a thin whisper amidst the chorus of wailing shadows. Sweat trickled down Sarah's brow, her mind racing. "I won't. I promise." The shadows roared with laughter, an overwhelming symphony of derision that sent chills racing down her spine. "You can't hold on, none of you can." Then, in a final surge of determination, Sarah fought against the dark tendrils wrapping around her. She ripped her gaze away from Lily's comforting figure and turned back to Max. "We have to push through." The door loomed ahead, its handle a sanctuary that felt utterly unattainable. But straining against the shadows, she pressed forward, a primal scream rising in her throat. The door was so close now, yet the shadows twisted violently as if alive, striking out, ferocious and hungry. A roar filled the air, combining with the sound of her own heartbeat, a frantic symphony of life clashing with death. Just as the darkness seemed ready to engulf them, Sarah felt the fleeting warmth of a hand brush against hers. "Lily! Mom, please!" The shadows swelled with rage, trying to extinguish the fleeting light her daughter's voice brought. "Max, hold on. We're almost there." With a final, desperate lunge, Sarah grasped the handle and yanked the door open. It felt like stepping into freezing waters, a wave of darkness crashing against her. She squeezed Max's hand so tightly, fear coursing through her veins, as they stumbled through the door. They fell through it together, the scream of the lost ones echoing behind them. But just as they landed in a tangle of limbs, breathing in the stale air of the next room, Sarah's relief was short-lived. Overhead, the shadows writhed and shimmered, forming a new shape, a sprawling figure, darker than night, looming like a predator. "Welcome back." The voice was chilling, a deep resonance like thunder rumbling in a void, striking the very core of their being. As dread pooled in her stomach, Sarah realized the true nightmare was far from over. They might have escaped, but escape was just another game beginning, what awaited them in this new room. And how much longer could they outrun the darkness that hungered for them? The room was vast and empty, yet suffocating. Cold air wrapped around them, clammy and sharp, creeping under Sarah's skin. She could barely see, the dim light flickering overhead casting strange shadows that danced like lost souls. It was a stark contrast to the suffocating tunnel behind them, but this space felt just as ominous, just as alive. "Where are we?" Max whispered, his voice small and trembling, the echo bouncing back to them like a warning. I don't know." "Just stay close," Sarah breathed, her heart racing anew. Her gaze darted around, desperate to find a safe corner in this strange chamber. Overhead, that figure loomed still, an immense shadow that twisted and turned, its form constantly shifting. It towered above them, consuming the light until only darkness remained in its grasp. "You ran from me once." The voice rolled like thunder, oppressive and low. "But you cannot run forever." "Who are you?" Sarah shouted, trying to sound defiant, though her voice cracked under the weight of her fear. "An old friend," the figure purred, its voice slithering through the chilled air. A chill ran down her spine. Memories she tried to bury flooded back, faces twisted in agony, shadows closing in. The room felt endless, as if they were trapped in some staring contest with a nightmare. Shadows writhed against the stone walls, flickering like ghosts caught between worlds. Max clung to Sarah's side, his small body trembling with fright. Suddenly, Lily stepped forward, her eyes wide with something between surprise and terror. "Mom, what is that?" Before Sarah could respond, the dark figure seemed to swirl, coiling like a serpent ready to strike. "Oh, my dear children, I have waited such a long time for this reunion. You have escaped pain and sorrow, but now I bring it to you anew. Back!" Sarah shouted, stepping protectively in front of Max and Lily. How could she protect them? The very air seemed to thrum with evil, as if the shadows themselves were stretching out, keen on finding purchase on her children. "Leave them be!" she screamed. Her voice echoed, ricocheting off unseen walls. Dread settled like lead in her stomach. But the figure merely laughed, a sound that sent shivers curling through Sarah's bones. "They are already marked, as are you. You cannot deny what you are." An icy breath swept through the air, snatching at her shirt and pulling her ever so slightly closer to the figure. For a moment, Sarah felt their connection, a bond tethered in blood and pain. "Mom!" Max cried, fear shattering his tiny voice into a million pieces. "Don't listen." Sarah choked back a gasp, fighting against the panic rising within her. She had to think. There had to be something she could do. "What do you want?" she demanded, her voice wavering. "Only to remind you of what you have lost, and what you cannot escape," the figure hissed, its form twisting, revealing distorted faces in its depths. "You will relive it through them." As the shadows pulsed with anticipation, Sarah's thoughts raced. She could feel something breaking inside her, a brittle thread of hope teetering on the edge. The shadows closed in, they whispered of despair, of surrender tempting her to fold, determination ignited within her chest. "I want to let you take them." The shadows rippled. For a brief moment, silence swallowed the room. Then, a discordant laughter erupted, filling the space like trapped gas, ready to explode. "You are already too late, and now, the game truly begins." At that moment, the surroundings warped. Walls began to pulse and morph, colors blurring, creating a tunnel of despair, threatening to pull them back into oblivion. "Run!" Sarah shouted, shoving Max and Lily ahead, unsure of where the distorted pathway would lead them. As they barreled forward, Sarah looked back one last time, meeting the gaze of the lurking figure. The darkness only grinned wider, promising her a chase through her own deepest fears. Just as they vanished into the twisting corridor, the voice echoed behind them, mocking. "Ready or not, here I come." Panic surged through her veins. What awaited them at the end of this dark maze? The answer loomed just beyond the veil of shadows, and Sarah felt the weight of certainty sinking her deeper into dread. Would they ever find their way out? The corridor twisted and turned like a sinister living organism, constantly shifting beneath their feet. Sarah barely had time to process the fear gripping her heart before the shadows lunged toward them, stretching with claw-like fingers. Max and Lily stumbled in the chaos, their breath shallow, panic ringing in the air. Faster! Sarah urged, the sound of her own heart beating thunderously in her ears. Yet, with every step they took, the darkness seemed to pulse, creating a barrier that clawed at her ankles, urging them to stop, to fall. "Mom, I'm scared," Max cried, his voice piercing through the corridor's oppressive shroud. "I know, sweetheart, just keep moving," she shouted back. They dashed forward, twisting and winding further into the unknown. The shadows whispered around them, their words a cacophony of torment that made Sarah's skin crawl. "They're coming for you." Ahead, a flicker of light appeared, a beacon in this hellish path. Sarah pressed on, half dragging her children in haste. The light grew brighter, transforming the corridor into a surreal nightmare painted in haunted pastels. They were closer, so much closer, but then, the light flickered ominously. Sarah's heart sank as the shadow behind them expanded and swallowed it whole. The laughter, that sinister, mocking laughter echoed once more, drowning her thoughts in despair. "Turn back, Sarah. You can't save them, they belong to me now," the voice hissed, seductive and poisonous like a serpent. "Silence!" she screamed, flinging her arm back as if to physically cast the darkness away. The corridor whispered her failures, clawed at her. Ghostly figures emerged from the swirling gloom, lost souls twisted in agony, their faces familiar. "Mom! What's happening?" Lily shouted. "Just keep moving," Sarah urged, her voice breaking under the weight of grief and fear. In the depths of her mind, the dark memories snarled, clawing for release. Faces she couldn't quite place slid from the shadows, friends, loved ones, each one a taunt, a reminder of her past failures. The twisted figures reached out toward her children, their hands desperate, pleading. Max let out a terrified scream as he lost his footing, falling to the ground. "Help! Max!" Sarah lunged in instinct, fear exploding in her chest. But as she reached him, the figures surged closer, thrumming with anticipation. All at once, she felt a pull, sharper than any physical force. A glazed vision struck her, a flicker of their last family vacation, laughter echoing, warmth wrapping around them. The knowledge settled like ice in her gut. This was it, this was the moment she had been desperate to escape, the moment that sealed their fates. "Mom, pull me up." Max's plea snapped her back to reality. With frantic strength, she gripped her son's arm, hoisting him up just as the shadow surged forward, desperate to reclaim him. The corridor moaned, an animal in agony. They resumed running, urgency fueling them, every step pulling them deeper into the dark's grip. Then, the corridor narrowed further, a door began to take shape at the end, framed by more shadows that pulsated hauntingly. "Is that a way out?" Lily's bright eyes shimmered, clinging to hope as if it were a lifebuoy in turbulent waters. "Maybe. We have to reach it," Sarah shouted, disbelief lacing her voice. The door loomed closer, an exit or a trap. Just as they were upon it, the laughter exploded, seeping into the air like a toxic gas. The shadowy figure loomed behind, massive, ready to strike. "You can't escape what you've invited in," it thundered, claws outstretched, reflecting the ache of every anguished memory collected over the years. With trembling hands and heart pounding against her ribs, Sarah grabbed the handle, breath held tight. Would it be salvation or the final descent into hell? As she turned the doorknob, a chilling question filled the air. Could she leave it all behind, or would she drag her children deeper into her dark past? The door creaked open, light flooding the space, but what lay beyond? The true horror awaited just outside, and what awaited them might be worse than the shadows they were fleeing. Would they remain united, or would they succumb to the darkness within? Sarah's breath hung in the air like mist as the door slowly swung open, uncovering a world drenched in a blinding white glow. It was disorienting. She blinked, the light cutting harshly through her panic. But beyond the threshold, shapes shifted in the radiance, dancing ominously. "Mom." Max's voice wobbled with uncertainty. "What is it?" "Stay close," she whispered, feeling her heart race faster than before. They crossed the threshold cautiously, leaving the oppressive shadows behind. For a heartbeat, it felt like emerging into safety, but safety quickly turned treacherous. The white light flickered, morphing quickly into a scene of familiar horror. The walls were covered with images, snapshots of their family's smiling faces at the beach, birthday parties, moments meant to be sacred. But these were twisted now, each image accompanied by wails and cries echoing from the frames. They were trapped in their own history, and their joy was warped into a profound agony. "Lily, cover your eyes," Sarah shouted, her instinct kicking in. But it was too late. Lily stood frozen, staring at the faces of their past with wide, frightened eyes. She saw the love and laughter that had filled their lives seep away and be replaced by twisted pain and grief. "No, no, no. This can't be real," Max wept, shaking his head wildly. "It's just shadows, it's just shadows." But Sarah could feel the awakening of something dark within her. Shadows of regret began creeping back, urging her to acknowledge the pain she had buried for too long. The very thing she wanted to escape was now flooding back, filling every pore, consuming her heart. "Sarah," the voice returned, mocking her, echoing in the brightly lit horror. "Look at the faces. This is what you made them. Your inaction turned their joys into despair. Stop it." She screamed, the meekness of her earlier response swallowed by rising fury. She surged forward, pushing through the chilling images, desperate to shield her children from the truth. "We are not defined by our past." But with each step deeper, the laughter returned, a sinister melody laced with the discontent of her memories. It clawed at the threaded seams of her sanity. These shadows were memories estranged, seeking acknowledgement, and agreement. "Mom." Max pleaded again, fear rising in his tone. "It's getting darker." Sarah turned, realizing the corridor behind them was narrowing again, the shadows creeping closer. The door they had come through was fading, the edges fuzzing into black once more. "No!" she shouted, grabbing Lily's hand tightly. "We can't stay here." The moment she spoke, the ground shuddered beneath them, shifting as if alive. Sarah felt the pull of the corridor, tugging at the soles of her shoes, hungry for them. "Together," she commanded. "On 3. 1, 2, 3. They flung themselves forward, adrenaline pumping, tearing past the images of their family's history, ignoring the wails that echoed in their ears. But as they tried to escape, a sudden heat enveloped them, clenching tight like a vice. The shadows, now forming full bodies, reached out. "Don't leave yet. You owe us your truths." They shrieked, the horrifying voices layered over one another, coiling into a dissonance that threatened to drown out their own thoughts. "Mom! I can't!" Max yelled, fighting against the bitter pull of the darkness. But then, as the thundering laughter reached a climax, a sudden gust of wind swept in from nowhere, shoving them forward. They tumbled through the darkness toward what they hoped was an escape, but did it lead to illumination or just another memory? As they were swept into the unknown, a chilling realization flooded over Sarah: whatever lay ahead was no sanctuary, and they were still bound by chains of their past. And as they vanished into the shadows once more, a figure stepped from behind the door, a grin of unfathomable sorrow spreading wide across its shadowed features. "More come every day," it murmured, its voice a haunting melody of despair. "It's never ending." What they had left behind now pursued them with abandon, and the true nightmare had only just begun. The shadows roared, crashing against Sarah and her children like a relentless tide. They staggered together, pulling each other closer as the darkness writhed and twisted, clawing at their clothes and skin, intertwining pasts and presents, memories and nightmares. This was not just any darkness, it pulsated with the pain of every lost child, echoing the terror in their small hearts. "Don't look back!" Sarah shouted, urging Max and Lily onward as the corridor heaved violently. They pressed forward, each step fueled by adrenaline, their breaths coming in panicked gasps. It felt as if the memories of joy were curling into shadows behind them, clawing for one last chance to reclaim what had been lost. Suddenly, a haunting figure materialized in the distance, drenched in that sinister glow. It stood with an outstretched hand, beckoning them closer. "Join us. Remember," it whispered, the voice swirling like wind through leaves. Sarah's heart pounded louder than the ominous laughter echoing through the dark, an impenetrable barrier that separated them from the being of light. "No!" Sarah screamed, throwing her arms around her children as if they could shield them from the creeping tendrils of despair emerging from that shadowy figure. "This is not our home. We don't belong here." It was a defiant roar that rang out against the encroaching dread, but the figure only smiled wider, eyes glinting with something wicked, something devastatingly ancient. "You can't escape what you've brought with you. The lost ones are part of your story now." In that moment, the heavy weight of realization crashed down on her. They were not just escaping, they were meant to confront. The shadows howled in delight, echoing the pain in Sarah's heart. The memories she had hidden, stashed away as if to protect herself and her children, were the very shackles binding them. "Mom!" Max's voice pierced through the cacophony, shaking her from the spiral of self-doubt and sorrow. "We need to go to the light." Sarah's heart lurched. It wasn't just about escaping now, it was about facing the truth, no matter how despairing it was. It was time to break the cycle. "Okay," she whispered, clenching her fists. "We're going to face it together." Together, they sprinted toward the figure, determination fanning the flames of courage within Sarah. The shadows surged, attempting to envelop them, but as they neared the figure, sight of its warm light cut through. Darkness hissed and pulled, but Sarah planted her feet, anchoring herself and her children in place. "Let go of us!" she shouted, channeling every ounce of strength and love she held for her children. The shadows shrieked in protest, writhing as if they were being torn apart. As she reached the stranger, the figure's features sharpened, revealing the twisted echoes of every child lost too soon. "You remember now," it said, voice melodic yet tinged with sorrow. "You will find peace only by understanding us." "Stop!" Sarah cried, throwing her arms wide, catching Max and Lily in the embrace, and pulling them close to her heart. "We won't forget you, but we will not be part of your darkness. We choose to remember in love, not in pain." The shadows screamed as she released all the fears, the burdens they had concealed, the regret, the guilt, the abandonment. Each confession echoed forward, splintering their grasp as the light surged more vibrant than ever, illuminating the corridor with a bright, healing glow. With blinding force, the darkness shrieked and retreated, unraveling the shadows that once gripped them as Sarah and her children stepped into the light together. The light calmed the chaos, transforming the frenzied shadows into twinkling stars, and for the first time, laughter echoed genuine through the air, as if the lost ones felt the warmth of hope. Sarah, Max, and Lily found themselves standing on the familiar street of Maplewood, light bathing them in warmth that felt like a hug. "Did we win?" Max asked, confusion flitting across his freckled face. "Yes," Sarah said, her heart swelling. "We won. But we will always remember the lost ones. They are part of every moment we cherish." With that, they turned towards home, hand in hand, knowing their journey had changed them forever. They wouldn't forget, they would honor the stories, the lost echoes, filling Maplewood with the warmth of connection rather than the chill of loss. And as they walked, the summer sun dipped low, splashing the sky with vibrant hues of warmth, promising that for every darkness, light can always break through. Now it's your turn to honor the memories. Don't forget to subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories that dive even deeper into chilling tales. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and let others experience this journey of hope and resilience. Flood the comments section with your reflections and theories about how you interpreted the ending. Your voice matters. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this incredible conclusion. Only true fans understand the importance of supporting our channel. Let us keep the stories alive.